back with more The Haunting of Bly Manor. This is episode 3. Very excited to carry on. I've really enjoyed these first 2 episodes quite a bit. And yeah, we ended off with Miles having a bit of a moment and being stared down by a creepy guy behind the window. Some kind of ghost of sorts, I would assume. So I imagine we're going to be continuing on from the aftermath of that, exploring a bit of that. And it was very kind of Miles-centric, I feel like, the last episode. So is there going to be, a different character taking centre stage this time? Are they doing something different? I'm excited to find out and just get, even deeper into this story because I'm very invested already. So I'm excited. And let's get into the next one. Oh. Backstory.
Most certainly isn't.
Oh.
Miss Driscoll.
Ah.
You have a stain on your blouse.
The children are what? 7 and 9? I expect being precious about blouses won't serve me well.
Yeah. It's true.
Quite.
I trust that won't be a problem, Mr. Quint.
I feel like Flora kind of speaks like her in a way. So I wonder if she kind of rubs off on Flora.
Quint drained one of Mr. Wingway's bank accounts last year. Over £200,000.
Hard to believe he'd come back to steal.
Oh.
I did a sweep. I'm not sure what else you'd like me to do.
Anything, really.
He expected rather a lot from the police, if memory serves me correctly. But he's probably still in touch with your superior.
I'll take another drive.
She can get shit done.
What have I gotten myself into exactly?
Well, the children are clever.
You have no idea.
Strange.
You want to be our very own Mary Poppins?
Well, I'm not practically perfect, but I am
Perfectly splendid.
perfectly splendid.
She does rub off on Flora. Oh no. Weeping angels. Oh, jeez. That could have been awkward.
Let's stay up all night.
Flora.
This is all so exciting. We're going to stay up all night long and it's going to be perfectly...
Why would he call the dead woman?
He might not know she's dead.
Well, he seems to be like a ghost himself. So maybe he's dead, I don't know.
You get to make up all kinds of people and tell stories with them. Hello, my name is Flora.
But they're not made up. I'll make one of you, Miss Jessel. What's your favourite colour?
Yeah, they're all ghosts.
No one's ever given me flowers before. And I thought they were for Miss Jessel. And now he's so dreadfully jealous.
Well, we can share, can't we, Flora?
Of course.
Keys. See,
Oh,
people are like locked rooms. They've all got different locks, and you've got to guess the
he's
shape
been
of
looking
the
for people's keys.
Like,
Is he being possessed by this guy?
I can't imagine a young Rebecca Jessel looking out her window, arming up at the sky that someday, she'd be scrubbing up some rich kid's puke while this captain drinks himself into a coma.
This is the kind of thing Henry was saying to Danny during her interview.
Henry's a QC and a master in trade legislation, but you knew that when you applied, didn't you? I see you, Rebecca.
Trying to make connections.
Why am I here?
I have an idea.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. Stupid old I haven't slept well for days.
Tuck and relax for a bit.
Aww,
That was you curled up there.
I ship it.
The wrong kind of love can fuck you up. Follow you.
We've all been in the wrong kind of love for one reason or another.
But I saw how he twisted himself into her.
Is your wrong kind of love the glasses guy?
I know how so many people mix up love and possession. Yeah. They really ought to be in bed.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Uh-oh. Oh no. savage, Miles.
I couldn't sleep, and
There we go. Oh, why does she keep seeing cracks?
good morning.
Is that going to be part of her backstory? Kind of like Glasses Guy for Danny?
Any sign of him? Well, thank you for coming to our rescue.
Oh, you always come to mind.
These two are very sweet. Make out. Does like talking to him like heal her cracks? That sounds kind of wrong, but I meant it in a sweet way.
Flora?
I saw that bloody doll under the bed. Oh, God.
I'm all finished. He stayed the night, you know.
Well,
She knows.
happening here.
Flora?
Yes. Hello. Oh, and she's all in black like the doll.
He said, keep me posted.
Tell me you call a coroner and then maybe. No, nothing short of that would get Henry Wingrave back to Bly.
Oh.
Said the same thing when I told about Quinn. Keep me posted.
Why should anyone hate a lake?
She talks about it.
Because someone drowned in it?
Come back to bed.
Oh, shit.
Save your glass if you like. It is a lovely year.
He's making, like, their possessions his own.
Do you trust me?
No.
Try it on.
Is he, like, trying to, like, craft her in an image that he likes or something? There's the photo.
Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
The children, Rebecca, are on the lawn. Will I ever find you in here again, in Charlotte's things, ever again? So help me God, I will drag you out of this house by your bloody hair and throw you into that dirty lake.
Oh,
Do you understand me?
shit.
I mean, I've made some good cakes in my day, but this one is batter.
Um,
Now I've got a long face.
I love that guy. Oh, watching this in the time of COVID, just sharing that spoon.
Lemon.
We have a proper batter royale.
Oh my God.
I'm going to see strawberry.
What a surprise. The other one to what she said.
If you're going to flirt with him right in front of me, I want to sniff
Oh,
him out.
God. He's controlling her.
Do you have any idea what you look like?
Eating cake batter.
He asked.
Oh, my God.
Oh my god, you got into the makeup.
It's story time.
Yeah.
Good story time.
Always followed the smell of apples because maybe that meant I'd find my mum. It was perfectly
Mhm.
They forgot they had strings. Later, they forgot they were even puppets at all.
Is this about the dolls?
They laughed at him. And he was so sad.
Can we go back to the cat story, please?
These stupid puppets!
Is your neighbour, Mr. McQueenie?
Fuck.
Oh, I am so sorry, Owen.
Oh no, his mum's dead.
I am so sorry.
Oh, the one time he wasn't there. Oh. Hmm. Hmm.
Who the hell knew?
I'm expecting a jump scare. Oh, ah. Oh, what big eyes you have. Oh. Oh, shit. Okay, another very good episode. I feel like we are starting to really get a picture now of maybe not exactly what's going on, obviously, but I feel like things are becoming a bit clearer in my head. It helps that I've got a huge chunk of backstory in this episode. And we actually saw Rebecca, what she was like. Um, we saw Peter Quint, who obviously just kind of appeared to Danny before, but now we actually saw what he was like as well, and his relationship with Rebecca. The fact that he was obviously a very kind of controlling and abusive guy. Um, I'm just wearing her down a bit. Um, so it was some kind of good context, I guess, to some stuff that could potentially be going on. Because it seems almost like completely blanked on Miles' name then. Miles seems to be more so linked to Peter, and Flora seems more linked to Rebecca. And I think that kind of reflected in this, how much we saw Rebecca interact with one kid rather than the other. Same with Peter. So I think one of the more significant scenes for Miles in this episode was when Peter was telling him about, life is about keys or something, and you to just keep trying until you find the right thing that unlocks someone. And that's obviously tied into some of Miles's behaviours in the past couple of episodes. He's been talking about keys. He said that. I feel like he said it to two people. One of them was Father Stack. I can't remember who the other one was, but I do feel like he's mentioned it to more than one person. So maybe he's kind of, that's tied to him in some way. I feel like maybe he is being influenced by Peter. But then there's also the idea, is Peter alive? Is there a vision of him or something taking his form, maybe influencing things, influencing Miles? And Peter is still alive out there somewhere. Or did he die and we don't know about it, and maybe he's only just died and that's why he's now appearing? But why is Danny also been able to see him? How does that all tie in? So there's a lot to kind of unpack with that. And the little performance that Miles and Flora are giving, Miles's speech about puppets and strings and stuff, I think that could very much tie into Peter as a character. The fact that, I think he was very much a controlling person. He ended up using Rebecca as a bit of a puppet and like shaping her appearance and making little jabs at her, trying to kind of control her behaviours. I think coercive control is like the proper term for that kind of abuse. As you can just see, he just turned in an instant like that. He's obviously very selfishly motivated at times. Feels like everything just is his right to belong to him. But of course, when you first get to know someone like that, they do seem overly charming and overly likable. And we got that, and then suddenly that scene when he asked her to stay in bed kind of came along, and that was like the big switch, and like, okay, that's who he really is. So seeing that get explored, you can understand now the context of the position Rebecca ended up being in when she took her own life, apparently took her own life. Just keep singing Daddy Long Legs Fly in the background. He was very invested in this episode. So I enjoyed seeing, well, I didn't enjoy it because it's horrible, but I liked getting a glimpse of that kind of context and the idea of like puppets and strings. Miles himself may be a puppet to something controlling him, as we've seen in previous circumstances, even Flora to an extent. I think she kind of like makes these dolls, and she's like, oh, we're not making up stories with dolls, they're real. Because it seems she is seeing maybe real people and just modelling these dolls after them. Rebecca, her kind of ghostly form, if you will, was like appearing to Flora at the lake wearing the dress that the doll was as well. I don't know if that's just how she looked when she died by coincidence, but that was quite interesting as well. So I like how that's all tying things together, and Miles got so impassioned in his little puppet speech, actually dressing as a puppet himself. I think that's something that's cut quite deep within him. And what they were talking about was, it's how when it's story time, Flora's kind of dealt with something she's going through. So she had a lovely story about being a cat and finding her mother or whatever. Kind of her story was kind of about a mother figure, like a parental figure in her life, much like Rebecca could have been. And we saw how much Rebecca actually did rub off on Flora. She still says to this day perfectly splendid, which she got from Rebecca, which I liked. I thought that was a nice kind of glimpse of where that came from and why she says it all the time. It's almost like a tribute to her in a sense, which I think is actually quite sweet. And just little things like that I found quite interesting. And then Mars has just took this sudden, very dark turn, because maybe he hasn't dealt with stuff quite yet, because he's still very much going through it. I feel like, I guess, Flora seems a bit more at peace with like some of the influences around her. She seems like kind of okay with it, whereas Miles seems to struggle. Maybe he's just got, I don't know, a bit of bad luck in which spectres are influencing or haunting him or whatever the hell's going on. I could be completely wrong even assuming stuff like that. But I do find that very interesting to see what is going on with that. And, you know, the fact that we are seeing this backstory with Peter and Rebecca and everything is going to tie in somehow. I'm not quite sure how yet, and if Peter is still alive in present day, if he has died, and has kind of come back to haunt them for some reason. If he is alive, does he know that Rebecca's dead? You know, we still haven't seen the proper circumstances of him like stealing all the money and leaving. So there's probably a bit more to that story we still haven't seen yet. So I'm excited to get a bit more backstory. I'm sure we will be getting it, but we got enough right now to kind of be like, okay, yeah, this guy was a dick, or is a dick if he's still alive, and just seeing how that kind of completely deteriorated. You know, the Rebecca we met at the very start when she had the job interview, and I like what she was saying about the stain. It's like, well, stain's in bloody man. I'm about to look after a 9-year-old kid. You know, I'm gonna get fucking messy. So that she was kind of standing up for herself like that, and I think even Henry kind of like, you know what, fair enough. I think he kind of was taken by her quite quickly then, as Peter certainly was. And they even say like, oh, it was more so Peter's job interview. You know, he was interviewing her, asking all her questions. He very much chose her probably to like shape her into his own image or whatever. Maybe, you know, the fact that he stuck around with Henry, you know, kind of aided his drinking, stuff like that. You know, he went out of his way to like buy him the alcohol and stuff that he consumed. Did he start him on that in the first place? Did he put him down that path in the first place, or was he just kind of, you know, making the most of the opportunity, if you will, and being like, well, if I keep getting him drunk, you know, I can control him too, and even though he's like my boss or whatever, I could still have a hold over him that way and have control over him, which is obviously, I think, a big driving force for him. Because what we talk about keys and stuff, he was very much like the impulses and like the driving forces behind what a person wants. And he even asked Rebecca in that scene with those two in the kitchen, I think it was, he was like, well, what do you want? And she was talking about what she actually wanted to do, and maybe getting this job gives her connections with Henry and stuff, which I thought was quite clever. And because Peter is so good at kind of controlling people and learning what people want so he can control them in that way, he just knew kind of how to handle that situation. So I don't know if he was kind of just trying to take advantage of Henry in that way so he could like steal his money, run away without being noticed or whatever, and just own the world. And I'm not quite sure, you know, how those motivations fully play out yet. I'm sure we'll probably get more context on that story. But yeah, it was a really great kind of first look at Rebecca and Peter, seeing how their relationship were like with everyone in the past as well, compared to present day now that they're gone. I love that Hannah took no shit from Peter. I think she had his number. I think completely knew what he was about and just absolutely owned him, which I loved about her. And she did seem very, don't know, rigid in her ways, I guess, back then. And now she's like seeing cracks and stuff like that. What is that gonna mean? Are they actually being healed whenever she talks to Owen? Was that just me with my shipper goggles on? I don't need glasses, these are my shipper goggles, in case you didn't know. So there's also that going on with Hannah as well. But I already adore the relationship she has with Owen. I think they're adorable, and I hope they get together. Because I think they like each other. I mean, I think Hannah certainly likes him, and I do think I think there was a moment last episode where I was like, oh yeah, I think he likes her. I think she was saying, oh, like, romances don't work in Bly. And I think he looked a bit disappointed and disheartened by that. So I think it's like a mutual thing and they just don't know how to take the first step, which is a trope I bloody love. So I'm here for it if that's the case. Or they're just obviously very, very close friends, which is also fine. It's the fact that when he found out his mum had died, he was kind of just staying quite strong. Then Hannah whispered something, and that's what made him break down. I think she's like his outlet for like that grieving process. And he probably also was very aware, like, oh, I have two grieving children here that, lost their parents, then lost their nanny. I'd rather not have to grieve and break down in front of them. That might bring up more shit for them. But Hannah was kind of the receptacle for his grief in a way, which I thought was really lovely. I feel like I didn't quite get what she said. I think she was like, just remember that she loves you or something, I think it was something along those lines. If I can watch it again, I could probably make it out because I think you could hear what she was whispering. But that was a lovely kind of moment between those two, and I liked that a lot. Just seeing how Owen was in the year before as well, like making the batter and stuff, and that was just more fuel for Peter to kind of get at Rebecca with. Completely blowing things out of proportion in order to control her, make her feel small, make her feel like she's done something wrong when she hasn't. All those kind of behaviours. So yeah, I feel awful for Owen. Like the one time he doesn't spend with her, it's almost like his mother was waiting. She just didn't want her son to be there for when she went. That might have been really awful for him. Which is incredibly, incredibly sad. And how they tied that into being like, oh, it was probably Peter doing all these prank calls, and then she was like, oh, sorry mate, she's dead. And then someone, she actually was dead in a way, because of the news they got. So I feel awful for Owen. We'll see how that plays out for him, because he seems wholesome as hell. And that was a really great performance from the actor as well. The actor who plays Owen voices Scarecrow in the Harley Quinn animated series, so I've heard of his work before. I haven't actually seen him in anything in live action like this, but I loved his performance as Scarecrow, so I do recognise his voice and everything. He's fantastic. I mean, the whole cast are bloody brilliant in this so far. But yeah, just little moments like that I really enjoyed. He has like a comedic kind of side to it as well. There were a few funny moments in this one. I really liked the cut with Flora being like, oh, we're going to stay up all night, and then it like cuts to her asleep. That was hilarious. And so I like that they can afford to be funny at times as well with the show. It makes a lot of sense that, when you have like two kids around and shenanigans are going to happen, there's going to be some light-hearted moments, because if you don't have funny moments in there, I feel like the scary moments aren't going to be as scary as they could be. So I quite like that, and I did appreciate, for the most part, this episode wasn't as creepy as the previous couple have been, so that was good. Nice little break, which probably means the next episode is going to be fucking horrendous, but I'm emotionally prepared. I'm not, but I'm going to pretend I am. So yeah, I liked everything with Owen and Hannah as well, and the kids. We've got obviously a brief bit more of Henry only in flashbacks, but even when Miles seemed to be, unwell, when Flora seemed to be unwell, he still wasn't coming back to visit them. So I feel like there must be more to his history with Bly as well. I feel like he just has a traumatic past. Maybe it is to do with like losing, his family. He lost people too, in the kids' parents. So I don't know if it's going to be tied to that, or if it's something else entirely about Henry. But, he puts himself at a distance. So exactly, why that may be, we'll have to see. Maybe it's something to do with Peter as well. Could kind of be anything, so I'm excited to delve a bit more into him as a character, because it might just be a case again, like Peter doing something to him, but again, even maybe it's just the aftershocks of it, and like a year later he still just hasn't recovered from maybe what the events of whatever went down when Peter left and Rebecca took her own life and everything, because he was still like drinking a bit when Danny had her interview. So we'll see exactly what makes him tick, I'm sure, as we learn a bit more about him and his putting that distance between people. And then what else do we have to talk about? Danny and Jamie. I feel like that's going to be a bit of a thing. And there seems to be a link to Danny's past as well with the glowy glasses eyes guy. I don't know if that was a former like romantic partner of hers. She was talking about like you know when love is wrong or something. The idea of like love versus possession, which they went through, and obviously we very much saw that with Peter. He kind of ended up making his relationship with Rebecca all about possessions, about that fur coat, the bottle of wine, the music box, the photo, the cake batter. I appreciate the batter puns, by the way. That's another reason why I love Owen. I think he makes puns all the time. I can relate. So he very much treated them as possessions, and even his concept of life being about people's keys. That's about flowers or money or alcohol. It's like possession things as opposed to the person and the emotion behind love. Peter seems driven by like the perfect imagery rather than feeling the emotions he needs to feel. So yeah, I am intrigued to learn a bit more about what Peter's role actually is in all this in the present day. So yeah, I don't know when we're going to get those answers. I imagine at some point. I think this was called the Two Faces Part 1, I think. So I think it's like, the two faces of Peter, probably. His real kind of persona coming out as the episode went on. Very two-faced man. But the next episode isn't part 2. I feel like that's a bit later on in the series. So maybe that's going to be like the rest of the flashbacks, filling in the gaps in a few episodes in like the part 2. I think structurally that's very clever. I like that a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that's the case or if it's just, they want to be funny with their titles. But yeah, I completely went on a tangent there. I was talking about Danny and Jamie. But yeah, there seems to be some kind of past potentially romantic with weird glasses guy with Danny. She's still haunted by him. And that kind of final shot when she like screamed and he like flew backwards or something. I don't know if like, because the glasses she has are cracked. I don't know if that guy like falls to his death or something. Does Danny like push him? Was he a very similar man to how Peter may have been with Rebecca? So they often I think they parallel Danny and Rebecca a bit in the show. Obviously same job and everything, but what Peter was saying to Rebecca, like, oh, you're a smart person, why are you just doing a job like this? It felt very similar to the what's the catch scene that Henry and Danny had during her interview. So there are some parallels obviously there, which could then send to some theories about where things may be going with them. But I think I need a lot more plot details and stuff, and to see what's going on with Rebecca, in the lake. I'm guessing Rebecca is just the lady in the lake as like a ghost. I don't know if that was who Flora was also talking to at the end of the last episode when she was playing hide and seek. Was that Rebecca? Was that someone else? I'm sure we'll get some answers. But yeah, there's obviously a bit more. Slowly, we're getting some context of the traumatic events that Danny's also kind of had to deal with. So we'll get answers when we get answers. And then, yeah, there seemed to be a bit of a thing with her and Jamie going on. They definitely had a very big moment near the end there, just as Jamie was leaving. So I'm intrigued to see that get explored a bit. Because my theory right now is Jamie is... what's the actress's name? Gina? I feel like I remembered the actress before. The woman telling this story back to the people at that wedding, I feel like that could be Jamie. They might throw a curveball because they've got the same accent. That's my only reasoning for behind that. And I, as I'm, standing, Jamie hasn't died in the past, so it could physically be her right now. But obviously that may change. I don't know. Why she'd be telling that story and what that would all mean, but that's my early theory anyway. But we are literally only a third of the way through the series, so I imagine that's going to be disproved fairly quickly. But she's growing in importance, basically, is what I'm trying to get at, because that potential theory could just be because she's getting a bit more focus as the episodes have gone on, and now there's a connection between her and Danny potentially to be explored. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch, so I'm excited to see that play out as well, and what that could mean for them and their characters and their story, because if they are paralleling Danny and Rebecca so much, and she's going to have a romance of her own compared to Rebecca's romance. How is that going to go? Is that going to compare and contrast in different ways? I don't think Jamie's anywhere close to a shitty person as Peter is. I think Jamie's actually a very nice person. So I don't think it's going to be, an exact parallel in that sense, but maybe they'll do some clever stuff, because they certainly do some clever writing and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I loved the backstory we got with Peter and Rebecca, kind of really getting to see what they were like, and you can kind of assume, like, okay, so that may be how they slot into some present day stuff and shenanigans going on. The idea of like puppets kind of running through multiple characters, I really enjoyed. I love the Hannah and Owen stuff. The Danny and Jamie connection's quite interesting as well. So yeah, all good stuff, and I'm just... I feel like there's just so much to talk about with all these characters already, and like we're only 3 episodes in, like literally anything can happen yet, and I feel like the story and the characters are already so rich. So they've done a brilliant job with that, and I look forward to seeing where the focus goes next, and what twists and turns they still have in store for us, because yeah, it's going to be a lot, but I'm excited for more. Really, really loving this a lot. I assumed I would, and I'm glad it's been worth the wait so far. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed these reactions as well. Fingers crossed. That's going to be everything for now, and until my next reaction, thanks for watching.